Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's study. And before we begin, let's have a word of prayer. Dear gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for the time this morning. We invite your Spirit's presence into our hearts and minds, and we are thankful for the light that's been shining upon our path. Please be with us. May your Spirit be present, and may we learn of Jesus. Bless each person. Help them to understand the things that we are sharing. And whoever watches this video, that you can guide them to all truth. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, so just before the study there, Stephen had mentioned that if you go on this chart and you take the midpoint, the mid date between November 9th, 1989 and September 11th, 2001, depending how you count it, where you start. But the center date is basically October 10th. And we've noticed this before when we were doing a study on the judges. We had the midway point, and that had to do with Jephthah or something like that. He had the number, because we have 4324. Was it that one? I'm trying to remember how we ended up. No, I thought we had the 10th day of the 10th month in 2010. That's where we have the 10th day of the 10th month, October 10th, 2010. So this ends up being 15 years different. And that one was dealing with the midway point. I gotta figure that out. So let's look at this here. Okay, probably gonna have lots of October 10ths. Maybe not. Okay, that was October 10th. There's October 10th, 2020. What is this? Maybe that was some kind of chiasm from January 11th, 2020 to October 10th, 2020, and then to July 10th, 2021. I don't know. Oh, that came from the Mayan calendar count. Here we have October 10th, 1985 marked. So I have no idea what this was. Oops. This was, so I guess this is another October 10th, the 10th day. Whatever this October 10th, 1985 was, it was 12,872 days to January 6, 2021. Wasn't that Babbitt's birthday or something? Anybody remember?
I'm looking.
Trying to think if that makes sense. So that was Ashley Babbitt. He was born in 1985, but what's the... I know there was some ambiguity regarding...
Says October 2.
Okay. Yeah, so that was all the digits of July 18, 2020 in that. So that's 10 years before 1995. That's pretty interesting, these October 10ths. But I thought we did have a 10th day. Maybe I had 10th day of the 10th month or something, dealing in the period of the judges. All these charts. Daniel 11, Samuel. We got a lot of charts. So Daniel and stuff. Okay. So it's going to be in here somewhere. Yeah. So I can't remember where it is, how I would have written it out. I probably would have written it as, sometimes I was using shortened versions of things. So it might be just to fit things in. I usually don't, because then I have to check all these different ways of writing things. Okay, yeah, so that was Jephthah. So that was, if we took 3316, Jephthah's name, and we doubled it, we got 6632, and that brought us to the midway point, sort of, I guess, how did that do? It brought us to the end of October 10th, so the same thing, but in 2010. So it's kind of interesting that we have this midpoint again, that's the 10th day of the 10th month between November 9th and 9/11, right? That's kind of odd. So we got, Ashley Babbitt's got the 10th day of the 10th month, which of course is a symbol of the siege. And that's what ends up happening. So, okay. So that's 2,162 days from the beginning of November 9th, 1989 to the end of the 10th day of the 10th month, 1995. And then there's 2,162 days to 9/11. So you have that, the end of the 10th day of the 10th month in 95. So that sort of midway point. So it's the same thing that we had with between 9/11 and 11/9. And that's not like, it's kind of weird. I mean, because they're completely different number of years. I mean, we wouldn't have it as, I guess, would it be the midway point in every single year? No, right? You know what I'm saying? Like if we took like 9/11 in some year and 11/9 in another year, you're not going to naturally have October 10th is, I guess, between September 11th and November 9th. I guess October 10th is the center date, right? Just in a normal year, right?
Yeah, if you consider the months and the days there, they're just like a mirror in a way, because you got the ninth day, 10th day, 11th day, uh, you know, so and then kind of mixed
Yeah,
up, and then you get the ninth month, 10th month, 11th month sort of there.
yeah, yeah. So you got it's between 9 and 11 is 10, and yeah, okay. So that kind of makes sense then. Okay, that's what I was trying to think, is why that is. Now, obviously, if you have it on different years, it wouldn't necessarily be, you wouldn't end up with October 10th the same. Like if you went from September 11th to November 9th in the next year, obviously October 10th isn't going to be the center. If so there kind of have to be the right number of years in between, right, for that to happen. Like within the year, or I guess every time you have an odd number of years, I guess is what it would be. But so like 1989 to 2001, though, is not an odd number. That's an even number. So maybe it's an even number of years. I don't know. I'd have to think it through. Anyway, so October 10th becomes this center date as a symbol, and it's kind of always the end of October 10th, the beginning of October 11th, right? So that's the natural timing in between. But in this history, the fact that it's in our history here, right? In this one, the fact that it connects to this by the number 11 times 718. So that's what we'd have. We'd have the center date here. Something like this. Let's do this. Right. So we have the center and 11, if you wanted to be really technical, 1995 to this. It's nothing like a good bit of math to wake you up in the morning. Okay. Chronology. Okay. So the number of days here is, I'll just say 11 times 718 days. People can do the math if they want to know how many days it is. But it ties together the 9/11 September 11th symbol, right, with that in this mathematical calculation, 11 times July 18th. So be what it may. So anyway, that's a bit more analysis. Now, I wanted to start with some of the stuff we finished off with yesterday. Ashley Babbitt is the martyr at the siege of Washington. She's the girl who was shot. Her Hebrew name, the Hebrew gematria, adds up to 777. So I did a paper on Ashley Babbitt. And so it's the first day of the 7th month, October 10th, 1995. Or October 15th, right? Not October 5th. It's October 10th. It's going to be Tishri 15th. So the 15th of Tishri, the first day of the Feast of Tabernacles. Okay. Does 2001 go on the line? Well, yes. There's lots of different ways in which we deal with 2001. One of the ways we deal with 2001 was a calculation having to do with 9/11 is in 2001, and you have 1840, which is the empowerment of the first angel's message, and then we did 1840 times, what was it? 1840 times 391.5 divided by 360 equals 2001, right? So simply we have 1840 times 391.5 equals 360 times 2001. So it ties together 1840 and the 391.5 and 2001 with the symbol of, a day for a year prophetic symbol, 360. So that was something that was noticed.
And you also have 1933 months between them dates, 11th of August 1840 to 11th of September 2001. And 1933 BC was the year that Ishmael mocked Isaac.
Okay, yeah. So so we have Ishmael connected to Islam.
Yeah, and that began a 400-year period, which is the 144,000 prophetic days.
Mm-hmm.
From that time, and it ended in 1533. And so from the 11th of August 1840 is 1533 days.
Yeah.
To 22nd of October 1844, the beginning of the third angel.
Yeah. Yeah. So all those things end up tying together, and we've done those things before. So it's not new, but we sometimes need to be reminded of those things. Okay. So now what I wanted to look at, because we had addressed this in 1 Samuel, we're looking at the second mistake, and David is going to go to the king of Achish in Gath, or King Achish, king of Gath. And so it's going to, let me see. So it's going to mention that first in 1 Samuel 21:10. And David arose and fled that day for fear of Saul and went to Achish, king of Gath. Now, I'd added 397 and 1661. Now, Angela pointed out that 1661 can represent 9/11. If you turn it upside down, you got the 9, the sixes become nines, and we have sort of a combination of 9/11 and 11/9, just like we did with the 191 by itself. But we had noticed that if we did an exclusive count, that we went to the Mayan calendar and we counted, we would get to August 11th, 2018. Now, August 11th, 2018 is the middle of this chiasm between June 9th, when time setting is going to be introduced, and October 13th, 2018, when I count the 391.5 days to November 9th, 2019. So for some reason, I never really thought about it till today, even though, we addressed it sort of before, because we're going to have Daniel from Brazil. He's going to count the 126 days. He does an inclusive count. He does it from June 10th. So he does this inclusive count. And but I do the regular count from June 9th when Jeff does the 9/11 prayer. His second one, he did one in 2017 as well. But it's that camp meeting in 2018 where Jeff invites Heidi and I to go to the School of the Prophets. And I just never really thought about it before in the context of that. At least if I did think about it, I forgot about thinking about it. So that becomes like the center of a chiasm of the 2 periods of 63 days. Becomes important because I wouldn't be there on October 13th to count the 391 and a half days to November 9th if Jeff hadn't invited us. So, and you know, the camp meeting went from the 6th to the 11th. August 6th, of course, we connect with the bombing of Hiroshima and my mom's birthday. But so the August 11th date, though, the fact that it's a center. Now we have then, now I watched the videos from the 10th and the 11th. I'm actually dealing with Samuel Snow's letters, because if we just did a cardinal count, it'd bring us to August 10th. This is an exclusive count. And I sometimes do exclusive counts, especially from December 21st, 2012, because when I meet Heidi, it's after sunset on the 21st. So, you know, in some ways it's like the end of the day rather than the beginning of the day. But that's, we sometimes do exclusive counts in other cases as well. But so we're saying that Achish, king of Gath, represents some kind of Protestant understanding. Now, we had already connected this to the word table with the showbread, the table of showbread, the table that's used for the table of showbread, which has this number 7979, which we then multiplied 7 by 9 to get these two 63-day periods. And the word table is doubled in where it's introduced where they put it on the table every day or every Sabbath or something. I think it's in that same thing. And so we have the word Sabbath there, which gives us the idea that we can take 7 times 6 is 42. And that gives us the 42 months of the 2/1260s, or the week of Christ. Right, and Kelly's putting some stuff up there about mistakes. You know, try to understand what the mistake was. So, I mean, we have the first error and the second mistake. The first error was his lack of faith in God. That's the first error. The second mistake, as she calls it, was his deception, doing this deception. And, you know, the question is, how does that apply to this? And, you know, I'd mentioned about, well, you know, he's changed his behavior before them and feigned himself mad in their hands, and just went, you know, to my experience when I broke down emotionally at the School of the Prophets. Now, you know, the story was that I had like a hissy fit or something, which wasn't what happened, but I don't know whether you could take that as a parallel. If we're going to say it's like feigned, I don't know how we could apply that, feigned himself, because there's a type of deception in there. Now, we also have the word feigned himself mad is the word, the Hebrew number 1984. It reminds me of George Orwell's 1984. So maybe it's something to do with, you know, doublespeak or something, you know, dealing with 1984. I don't know. That seems a little bit of a stretch. But he feigned himself mad in their hands. So obviously, you know, feigned himself mad, one Hebrew word for 3 English words. The word means to be clear, originally of sound, but usually color, to shine, hence to make a show, to boast, and thus be clamorously foolish. So the idea is he's to be foolish or to rave, right? So the idea is he's you know, being foolish in this sense. But we know that there is the idea he's feigned himself mad. The feigned isn't really there in the Hebrew, right? So the King James translators, they don't like put it in italics or anything. They're often inconsistent in that. Because I don't see that there's anything that he feigned himself in the Hebrew. But you have to have something, you know, you have to have some word in English to have that word. Like, you can't say he was mad, right? The idea is he changed his behavior to appear mad, maybe, but and the word shana, um, to fold or to repeat, and I believe that word is related to the idea of of year as well, like Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year. I believe that when you look up year, that it has that sort of meaning. To fold, that is duplicate, by implication to transmute. Do, speak, strike again, alter, double, be given, change, disguise, right? It has lots of different things. Return, do the second time. So he's going to change, alter his behavior. And the behavior is 2940. That word properly means to taste, but that is figuratively perception. By implication, intelligence, right? So lots of different ways it's translated. So he's going to change his behavior. He's going to, and so and it says before them, that is to their eye, right? So to their eye he appears. So that could be that, instead of feigning himself, he appears mad in their hands, right? So they have grabbed a hold of him, and he's like pretending he's like a little like a fool, or something's wrong with him mentally. But then he's going to scrabble on the doors of the gate, right? So he's going to make marks on the doors of the gate. And so we understand these doors representing a two-leaved door. We referenced back to the story of Samson carrying the gate of the city. And then we have spittle falls down upon his beard. And right, so just he's basically drooling on himself. And then we have the beard. Beard is 2206, which we often look at as June 22nd, the 22nd of June, which we know is an important date symbolizing FFA. Right. And it's also the center of the 777 chiasm that starts on the Mayan date. Right. So I think, the fact that when I see that, often I think of the Mayan date that is connected to the Mayan date. Okay. So I probably should show you what I was reading there. So that was verse 13, right? Changed his behavior. So we have all these different numbers. We have a lot of numbers, and the question is, do these fit in any sort of structure? That's what we've been looking at, how these numbers fit. And I spent a bit of time analyzing some of them, but I don't think I have something that we can, there may be just, I haven't looked at all of these numbers, like in different groups. I just looked at the numbers individually.
Does Angela's comment in the chat there relate somehow?
Yeah, well, the two-leaved gate, and which is Cyrus when he comes in to conquer Babylon, and Jerusalem in Isaiah 45. Does it say anything about Jerusalem, the gate? I don't.
No, I got mixed up again. I kept thinking about the temple, so I'm way off.
Yeah, okay, so it's Cyrus' army when it goes in to Babylon. He leaves the two-leaved gate is open, and it would not be shut, so that Cyrus's army could go in. And that's prophesied in Isaiah 45. Okay, so with some of these numbers that we have here, we would have to do math on them. Yeah.
Does it not be shut related all to the door that Christ opens and no man can shut? This reminds me of that verse.
Yeah. I don't know. I've never made that connection with the fall of Babylon, but it sort of is a type of a close of probation for Babylon, but in that case, the door is open, right? Because it's going to be the night of Belshazzar's feast.
He openeth and no man can shut, and he closes and no man can open. Relate then to the judgment somehow? Because it relates to the judgment of Babylon.
Yeah, I just don't know how we would apply it here. Like what we would do with it here. Right. But yeah, the main thing about the doors of the gate is it symbolizes the chiasms, right? And him writing on the doors. That would be a chronology, a prophetic mirror. Right. So that's why I was thinking about this, just because we end up with that August 11th date, that somehow I think that this second mistake relates to something dealing with this line. What it is, I don't know. But so we have this Levitical chiasm, and Jeff's going to recognize this January 11th, 2020 date as some kind of epiphany that he has in regard to Daniel 11. I never have fully understood what his epiphany was. Like, he just felt that at that point we understood Daniel 11. And I don't think we did. Right? But because you're going to be able to count 63 weeks from that date to March 27th, 2021, which is 441 days, which is a reverse of 144 for the 144,000. And we also had this where we took September 11th, that is 9/7 plus 11/9 plus 111, and that added up to 327, right? So you took 97 plus 11/9 plus 111. So 327, and that's the date that we get to, March 27th. So the third month, the 27th day, is going to be pointed out. It's not drawn here in this diagram, but you would have 441 days to March 27th, 2021. And then if we inverted these, so Dilio noticed that, but I noticed if you went the other way, 79 plus 911 plus 1 equals the 11th day of the first month. So if we did it in reverse, instead of month day, right, we did day month, we would get the starting date, right? That is, we would get January 11th, the 11th day of the first month. We get 1,101, and that can be representing 11th day, first month. So whether we do the British way or the American way of counting that date as a number, we're going to get the beginning of that January 11th. The other one, we get the end date, March 27th. So that is a pretty unlikely mathematical calculation, I would think, to take those three dates and to get the two different numbers. So for that reason, I've accepted the January 11th just as part of a structure. But I don't think that significantly fulfills like the meaning of it, right? So we have a meaning of what that meant. And could there be in there some kind of mistake? But the question is, David's making the mistake, and that's what we don't really understand about this second mistake. The first one, we could say that it's just a lack of trust in God, regarding maybe the disappointment. How would we tie this to the second mistake, where he's using deceit with the Achish king of Gath, right? So Achish king of Gath brings us to one of the dates of this chiasm as well. So that's why I think it's important. But yeah, we also have the Mayan date in theirs. So what exactly this is representing, we would have to sort of now we have another phrase that's used where he plays the madman, right? So we have the one where he feigns himself mad is 1984. In verse 15, it's going to talk about he plays the madman. And that's going to be a different word. That's 7696. So it's just shaga is the one. The other one was halal. So halal. Halal. Yeah. Okay. So we got these two different words. What could that possibly mean? We know that if we take shagag, shaga, let's see if you can, shaga, yeah. And we do the math on that one, we get it's 21 years, and we talked about it before, but it's 21 years and 25 or 26 days, depending where you end up in the 4-year cycle. 7696. So, I mean, if we counted it from 9/11, it's going to bring us to October 7th, 2022. I don't know of any significance of that date. Yeah, I do think that there is some connection with the COVID at that time, because Kelly's asking about China reports the first death on January 11th, 2020, and publishes a draft genome of the newly discovered coronavirus suspected of causing the outbreak. Yeah, so we know that it's a type of the Sunday law. Now the deception, or this mistake. I mean, we have had David represent Christ. I mean, I don't know if we want Christ deceiving us, but he does hold his hand over the mistake on the charts. Maybe that's in some reference to our understanding that sort of blinded us, or maybe it's something to do with the deception of the pandemic itself. I'm not certain. Okay, over us all at 2015.
Basically, we had no understanding beyond number 5 and the 5th, and then tying it into the 45th. Now we have 45th and 47th, or 5th and 7th. I mean, it just fits like the missing piece in a puzzle.
Yeah,
and that's the thing about prophecy is there's so many trying to predict, but I wish I could find that quote from James White about the proper understanding, be able to properly understand prophecy is in retrospect. It's seeing it fulfilled that we understand it.
Yeah, well, that's always been my view, and that's why I was, the time setting thing I was not really a fan of it, but we had all of this compelling information unfolding before us, so we kind of have to accept it, in that sense. Now I do have the man is mad in verse 14. So whether we put that together, sometimes we put them together. Okay, the man is mad. Mad men talks about have I need of mad men. So so Achish, when he uses the word, he's going to use the word mad, right? That 7696. The writer just says he changed his behavior and before them and feigned himself mad, using a different word. So I don't know the various connotations of these words, why the king of Achish uses a different word, but it may also be, just from his perspective, that it might be like a harsher word regarding David's behavior. And then we have to say, Achish, king of Gath, right? He's expressing this idea. It's his perspective, and this is like the Protestant. We're saying it's the Protestant understanding or interpretation, right? Now, the other thing that we need to recognize is we got these two tables here, right? That we had on this chart from just analyzing the showbread. So that's from the first error, but we have it here on this chart, and we need to consider what that means as well. Can these tables represent maybe that there is a mistake in regard to, because there's a connection obviously between August 11th and November 9th. There's a connection between David's first error and his second mistake. Two tables, the tables of showbread being presented, give us this chart, and they help us analyze the second mistake, right? So we look at it, we can see that the second mistake, the first one's a lack of trust in God. The second one is a deception before Achish. So you kind of see where I'm getting at here without me being able to express myself very well. So, I mean, we could think of the two tables as the charts or an understanding of the prophetic message. Obviously, the chiastic structure, that the word Sabbath, like the bread's put on these tables every Sabbath. So that's Sabbath to Sabbath. That's when the bread is changed. We get the prophetic mirror idea. So we have this prophetic mirror. In this mirror, if we go from June 9th to January 11th, we notice that March 27th, 2019 is the center of this chiasm. We don't have the rest drawn with March 27th, 2021, but and we don't have July 18th in this chart or December 25th, 2021 or 2020. No, 2021. Yeah, we don't have that, but we have this King of Gath tying us to this camp meeting, either to the last day, August 11th, or to the 10th. But it's my presentations on Samuel Snow's letters that are going on at that time. But also on August 11th, Jeff invites Heidi and I. So he first talks about it on Sabbath, actually, which is the 11th. And then on Sunday, like Heidi and I think about it. And then Sunday morning just says, you just come, like we wanted to put out the fleece or something. And he just says, just come, don't worry about it. So we ended up, going to the School of the Prophets, and me being there on October 13th. And I don't think if I hadn't been there, obviously I couldn't have done the calculation as it was happening. I mean, I guess I could have watched it online, but obviously being there, being involved in the whole thing, I might have had quite a different perspective of what was happening. So lack of trust then doubles down through deception to cover for his lack of trust. Well, I don't think he hasn't had it pointed out to him at this point, and we still don't fully understand what David represents. We know that we can, we did the number and it tied to the presentations because we counted from the Mayan date, 1732. And that brought us, I believe, in 2017 to the presentations there. So we got the King of Gath, right? That brings us August 11th, 2018. And then if we just take David himself, his number, 1732, right? That brought us to September 18th, 2017. So it brought us to those presentations in 2017. So we have David bringing us to the presentations in 2017 and the King of Gath bringing us to August 11th, 2018. Okay. And of course, that was 16 years and 1 week past 9/11 as well, which we had with that other number. If we go back here, right? So that from 9/11, that was dealing with the bread, right? That's that was a complicated sort of puzzle. But 2734, that's that word. That's one of the words that's doubled, plus the word for yom, the word for day, and we got this date as well. So we had it using the name of David and also adding together those numbers. So we tied the mine date and 9/11 together with those. Yeah, I know. It's so we got a lot of little pieces we have to put together. Now, normally on Thursday, I'd like to kind of tie up loose ends, but we looked like we're unraveling some things here a little bit. So anyway, we had him. I have no need of madmen, and this man is mad. Now, madman, of course, doesn't have the Hebrew word for man or man there, but in verse 14, lo ye see, the man is mad. So if we added those together, yeah, so August 11th.
Is that related in any way to when David danced and was it Mikhail, his wife, that was embarrassed by him? And because he was dancing in the robes of a common man.
Yeah, I don't know if I connected it all, but I mean, I haven't connected it. But
okay, the thing is, they're dancing and calling him mad. I wonder. Anyway.
Yeah, basically embarrassing her, I guess. But yeah, I don't know.
It was all about him. It wasn't the way he was dancing so much as him putting off the robes of the priestly robes or the princely robes to dance as a commoner. And she was infuriated that her status was being insulted, basically. A woman's status is in her husband, at least at that time.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm not really sure. I mean, we have so many numbers to analyze. Obviously, we can't. Yeah. So, any thoughts about this? Like, how could we interpret this?
What's the scrabbled on the doors?
Means made a mark.
Okay.
So he's going to make a mark on the door. Right. So that's why we're saying it has to do with the lines or the charts. Right.
So it looks like a madman scrabbling or bedazzling somebody. I'm making a joke.
Well, the word Scrabble probably comes from that.
Interesting how it lives down to our day.
Yeah.
But he feigns himself mad? Is that?
Well, yes. Yeah, so there's no feigning in the text. So in the text, he does not feign himself mad. That's just added, right? Because all you have in the Hebrew is he changed, right? That is, he duplicated or folded. His behavior 2940 is properly means just the perception, how people perceived him. So the changed, I guess, is sort of, implying that he's feigning before them, just to their eyes. So he changed how they perceived him with their eyes, and basically being clear or light. So shining is the word. So he's just kind of acting odd, right? But to put that into English, they put the word feigned, but there is no word feigned in the Hebrew, right? It's just the word mad, all of this, and feigned himself mad is one Hebrew word. And then in their hands, right? And then he scrabbled, wrote, made marks on the doors of the gate. And then his spittle fell down upon his beard. So
okay. That word let is important to us.
Yeah, duplicated, folded reminds Angela of the scroll written on both sides in Revelation. Yeah, so I mean, there's definitely a prophetic message here. Now, maybe this is, I don't know.
Any idea what he scrabbled on the doors of the gate?
No, they just made marks. He's just, you know, yeah. So to understand it, we take the gate to be the chiasms, right? It's a folded double door.
It's almost humorous what Akish is saying about the whole situation. Brought this madman in here.
Okay, so I had AI do sort out all the Strong's numbers in the text and count all the days from 9/11 and December 21st, 2012. Well, that made things easier. Okay, so I'll show you this list. So I mean, this will make me really lazy if I use AI in this way.
Theodore has found a new friend in AI.
Well, yeah, yeah.
I know.
So from September 11th, here's all the Hebrew numbers in the text. So we got July 22nd, 2006. That's the Hebrew number for David, right? The 6965 is August 16th, 2020. We got March 4th. We got February 7th, May 1st, all these different years counting, right? I didn't have any adding of things together.
Well, a lot of them are pretty familiar.
Yeah. Right. So, some of them are shorter ones. They're not going to, so this is from 9/11. So obviously you're going to have ones like 776. It's not going to go into our history really.
Shouldn't the 776 be 7676?
The what?
Oh, you have 776, but I thought it was supposed to be 7676.
Where? No, the word 776 is for land. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, then it would fit.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so we got lots of different dates. Here there's ones that obviously go even before the chiasm, other ones that go into our history, the larger numbers, right? So, short numbers are going to go. And then these are the ones from the Mayan dates. The Mayan date, December 21st, 2012. So you can see the list there. We got some that go past our time, way past, right? Some that go into our history. It hasn't combined any together, so it's just taken the numbers by themselves. This one, the 2088, that brings us to September 11th, 2018. And that is the date where I start doing presentations in 2018. I believe it was on September 11th. That's my first presentation. All right, so you can see you can produce a lot of dates, but not all of them are necessarily meaningful. This one showed up before in connection with the Mayan calendar, and I think I had it as 504 days, but because I was doing a different count. We've got September 21st, 2017. That's 2 days before the presentation I do at Lambert. We got another October 13th, 2023 date. This time it's 2023. Right, so you can see we can produce lots of dates with these Hebrew numbers. This is like all of that text. So then we'd have to sort out combinations.
So why 12, 21, 12?
That's the Mayan date 130000. That's the world's supposed to end. I met Heidi on that date.
Oh yeah, okay. Thank you.
So that's part of that, and that's the beginning of the 777 chiasm. So from that date, 777 days is my 52nd birthday. 52 by 360 is 1,872,000.
So that's the consistence factor here in this question you asked AI.
Yeah, it's actually 18720 days, pardon me. And then, and then that date, December 21st, 2012 is 1,872,000 days from the start of the Mayan calendar. So anyway, it just ties into all of these symbols for July 18. And then, so that 777 chiasm ends with December 25th, 2021. And the center date is June 22nd, 2017. Right.
Ends December 25th, 2021, you said?
That's the end of the chiasm. So it starts with December 21st, 2012. And then it ends with December 25th, 2021. And June 22nd, 2017 is the center. And it has on it the line of failed predictions. So
That date, 25th, 2021, is that the day last study we had together in terms of calling yourself?
in 2025?
Yeah. No,
Like,
no.
or 2021, you mean? Like December 25th, 2021?
I guess, yeah, yeah.
Well, it's not really the last study, but that's the one where basically, yeah, that's the conflict happens and the Canadian group is not interested in. Yeah, so I mean, I take a year off from them basically. I listened to them for a while, but so
It seems to me to have been a watershed moment where waters go one way or the other.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Now, also, we know 21 times 12 is 2520. Right. So
252.
252. Yeah. Yes. I was thinking, yeah, where's the zero? Where did I get the zero? Yes, 252. So 1/10 of a 2520. Yeah. So it represents 2520 as well. Yeah. So, I mean, you can see we can produce lots of dates. But when we often choose the words, we're not just choosing any old words in the text, right? So we're choosing the words that actually have meaning as far as our interpretation. Like we take Achish, king of Gath, and we added Achish and king together, or Achish and Gath together, pardon me. Now we didn't add king into there, right? So if you have whatever it was, 2058, I believe. Yeah, 2058, and you would add king, which is what, 4428 or something like that. So the word king is, yeah, 4428. You get 6486. So it gives you like 17 and a quarter years. 17 years and 277 days. So if you counted that, so let's go back here. I think AI could be useful as an analytical tool, but can also waste a lot of time. We got the 6486. So that simply brings us to, June 15th, 2019. Well, when was the camp meeting in 2019 in Alberta? I know it was the end of June, but I don't know if it was that weekend or the next weekend.
It was really close to the end of June.
It was closer to the end, so like the week later.
Yeah.
Okay. So it brings us like 1 week before. So it doesn't bring us right to that camp meeting. It's the 11th of Sivan, which we know is the publishment of Samuel Snow's Pentecost letter. He writes it on Pentecost. It's published on the 11th of Sivan, which is, if you double that, it becomes the 22nd of the 6th month, which is June 22nd as a symbol, the date he wrote it. Right. So we're going to need more to sort of tie this story in, or to take whatever it is that's in this story. We're going to have to spend a bit more time analyzing it. So David's going to hear about, this servants of Achish saying to him, "Is this not David, king of the land?" Right. And it says David laid up these words in his heart and was sore afraid of Achish, king of Gath. And so him being afraid, it sort of relates to the first fault. But here in this case, it's his fear that's going to cause him to act, right?
Fear of man brings a snare.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I'm going to go back here. So I know we didn't really tie up any loose ends here, but at least we're kind of figuring out where some of the ideas are here, and keep analyzing all these numbers.
What are you looking at there?
I'm just looking at the Hebrew numbers and just looking at the different words in here, to see if there's any way that we can look at these to provide symbols. I know I've looked at them quite a bit. So, well, the verse here that reminded me, of course, of the Mayan calendar is the 1 Samuel 21:12. So we got December 21st there. So, and we knew if we counted, from the Mayan date, David, right, we came to that date in 2017, right? So,
A question occurs to me. The word mad and madmen.
yeah,
Two different. Any connection?
yeah, there's two different words. Yeah. So Achish uses the word madman, which is 7696. But the writer uses the word 1984. Right. So we have two different ones. So that's something that, we have to consider what that would mean. So still, I go back to 2012, 2112, I mean. And so that gives us that Mayan date, December 21st. And we did count David from that date. Obviously, the word laid up would bring us way past our time. But we do have things like these words. He laid up these words in his heart. So, what does that mean? What is David doing?
Hover again over laid up. Yeah, that one. You're doing what I was going to ask you to do. Highlight that number to look at what it means.
Word is soon. Yeah. To put, consider. It means lots of different things. But it means to put, used in a great variety of applications, literally, figuratively, inferentially, and elliptically. So it's kind of a word that the context sort of determines it. Now, these words, Ella, right? That's a common Hebrew word. And then words again, debar, it's a common word for word.
This here is a teaching moment for me. So that's one of the problems I've always had with Strong's definitions is there are so many options, and then how do we narrow it down to 2 or 3 or whatever?
Well, usually what you do is you look at the word as it's used in different places and you find similar contexts, right? So I mean, you do need ultimately a bit of an understanding of Hebrew grammar and how it works, because people do weird things. I mean, you could do that with English. If you didn't know English grammar, you could mistake one word for another. It's spelt the same, sounds the same, but in different contexts, it has completely different meanings, and you would never, switch the two around. Maybe in a pun, and sometimes Hebrew does use puns as well. It's one of the things you need to understand about Hebrew, that puns are part of their figures of speech, not necessarily meant for humor, but for actually referring back to something else. There's sort of a type of allusion to something else. So he laid up these words in his heart. Yeah. So Achish, king of Gath. Now he was sore afraid of the face of Achish, king of Gath, right? So you can see there we have the 6440, that means face, panim. They didn't put it in there, right? But literally that's how you translate it. So we got, he lays up these words in his heart and was sore afraid of the face of Achish, king of Gath. And you'll see this word 853, that's just et, that's aleph and tav. Now, it's an interesting word. They usually goes untranslated in the King James. It's the sign of, because the word, it's contracted from 226. So that word relates to the symbol for June, the 22nd of June. But it points out definitely the object of a verb or a preposition. So that is, it's a grammatical term that we don't really translate into English, right? So you want to know. So properly, the word means self. And the fact that it's the first and last letter of the Hebrew alphabet is kind of interesting. Aleph and Tav. So it's et, right? Aleph, et, and Tav. So sometimes I pay attention to it. I think that it's like a mark, and you'll see it's here in this section, and you don't see it often, but it's here in verse 12 and in verse 13 and verse 15. You have that word. So the fact that word's there. Also, the other thing about 853. Trying to remember what was the other thing about that number. It was
Now you're saying, what are the first and last letters?
in the Hebrew alphabet, aleph and tav.
Aleph
In
and
Greek it's
Tav.
alpha and omega, but in Hebrew it's aleph and tav.
And here it is saying, what
So
about
when
David?
the word et, which is to mark the definite object, like in a grammatical sentence, right? So you see it's aleph and tav, it's 853, apparently contracted from 226. So 226 is the 22nd of June as a symbol. In the demonstrative sense of entity, properly self, but generally used to point out more definitely the object of a verb or preposition. So it's sometimes translated as even or namely. As such, unrepresented in English.
So changed here means all of that.
What?
Changed here means all of what you just read, apparently contracted
Not the
from.
word changed. No, it's not untranslated. It's in brackets, 853. You see it in 3 spots here. Laid up, and then it has in brackets 853. Because they're not going to translate it, they put it in brackets. After the word changed, again, they have 853 in brackets. Same in verse 15. Ye have brought, they have 853. So in English, we don't generally translate this word from Hebrew because it's a grammatical term that has no real equivalent in English.
Yeah, question?
What?
Okay, question. So where they say it's not translated, is that so they put nothing there, or is the word next to it on the left, outside of the brackets, the word they're suggesting? Or is it in italic? Or there's no word at all?
They don't put any word in the King James for that word because you can't really translate it into English. So they just put the Hebrew number in brackets to let you know that word is there in the text, but it's left untranslated.
And what we're looking at in the yellow box is that word left untranslated.
Yes, it's the word et.
Yeah. That's very interesting. I've never seen that before in Strong's. Okay. Is that blue letter or which version? What software is it?
I'm using eSword and
right.
King James.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good one.
Yeah. I mean, this word occurs in Leviticus 26 as well. That's one of the first places I noticed it, was studying 26 verse 18, I think. So, I had to learn about it. I mean, I sort of learned about it when I learned Hebrew, but, it wasn't very important. You just kind of ignore it. But the fact that it's the first and last letters of the Hebrew alphabet, and that it's a mark, it means like to mark something in a sense. So that's why it's kind of important to know. I think it's in Leviticus 26:18, but it could be somewhere else. But anyway, so it's just something of note that it's in this text 3 times in this passage. And you don't see it very often. I mean, it occurs quite a bit, throughout. If you look at it as a word, like if I click on this and I go to the King James Concordance here, you'll see that word occurs, pretty sure at least, a couple hundred times. It's 111 times. Oh, yeah. That's interesting. See, and it's translated 111 times. So often it's left untranslated, but there are times that it is translated, right? What and even, whom, whose, whatsoever, right? So it's referring to something. Okay, so our time is up. So let's close in prayer. Dear Father in heaven, thank you for the study this morning. We know, Lord, that we have not figured everything out, but we know that you are there and that you are teaching us and helping us in our studies. Help us before we come together next Sunday to study this, that we have a clear understanding of what it is you're showing us. And we pray for the studies tomorrow evening and Sabbath, and that they'll be a blessing. Bless each person, watch over them today, and guide and direct us. Help us to overcome self. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.